Years ago, I was on a cross-country trip, solo, to a family reunion. I was supposed to make it a friend's house, but there was horrible weather. It was slow moving. Then a terrible accident happened just ahead of me, and I was stuck for quite a while. All told, I was 5 hours behind schedule. I was exhausted, in need of a bathroom and a shower, so I pulled into a little strip motel off of a fairly back road state road. It was obviously small and dirty, but would work in a pinch. There was a window to the outside where check-in was. The guy there eyed me up, then a college-age girl. Asked me if I was traveling alone. I went to hand him my ID and credit card, but he insisted cash only. Red flags were going off at this point, but I scrounged together just enough cash and he tossed me the key. The room was dirty, barely bigger than the bed. The first thing I did was go to the bathroom. Then I flipped up the mattress. Dirty, signs of bed bugs. A moment latte. Ispia kukuruak. That was it, I was out. I decided I would use the parking space at least and sleep in the back trunk hatch of my SUV. I curled up, using a suitcase for a pillow and random clothes for a blanket, and fell asleep for an hour. I woke up aware of someone talking on a phone outside and glanced out to see the guy from check-in standing outside. It was now around 3 a.m. He finished up his call, then walked quietly over to my room, unlocked the door and walked in. The lights didn't turn on, and a minute or two later, he came back out, slamming the door behind him and cursing with another guy. I hadn't seen Guy 2 enter, so I still don't know where he came from. They angrily talked for a moment, then check-in guy walked over to my SUV. I covered up my head quickly with a shirt. After he tried the locked door, he peered in the back seat, but between my tinted windows and blending into the general mess, he didn't notice me in the hatch. The two guys walked away to the far side of the lot, talking more, the one gesturing across the street where a diner was. While they were distracted, I climbed up to the front seat and started up the SUV, they turning around in surprise as I pulled away. I called my friends back home and told them, but didn't want to worry my family, so I said nothing to them. When I got back home some 3 weeks later, we figured out the name of the hotel thanks to Google Maps and called the local police. They told me the place had closed down only days before I called. Edit. Frequent question stuff. This was about a decade ago. Took place along 250, I believe, in Virginia. Place name was Mountaintop or Mountainside Motel. It was a single-story building, check-in window in the middle. Tiny diner across the street. No other businesses nearby. My logic was that it was smarter than parking by the side of the road. Police took my info, never called me back. Never found out anything from web searches immediately afterwards. At least one friend thought I misunderstood the situation, and there was a logical reason. When I was in university, I had a summer job in the town by my cottage, and spent the summer living there alone. One night at about 11, I was watching TV when an 18-wheel truck pulled into my driveway. Keep in mind this is a pretty isolated area. I stood inside for a couple of minutes deciding what to do while this huge truck was idling in with its headlight shining into my front window. Instead of hiding, I grabbed a butcher knife, stepped onto the deck, and yelled, "What the fuck do you want?" It turns out my neighbor forgot I was living there during the week. No car, bike to work, and told his visiting friend, a long-haul trucker, to park there overnight. The poor, unsuspecting man was checking in with his wife on the phone when I emerged in a nightie, with a crazed look in my eyes, wielding a knife. This was likely also one of his scariest experiences. Edit. Wow. First gold smiley face. Thanks. It was my senior year of high school. On a warm May evening, I was getting ready for bed when I heard yelling coming from outside. I ignored it until I finally crawled into bed. It wasn't long after I closed my eyes that I heard, "I want to fuck you," through my open bedroom window. I was confused, so I got up and looked out my window. There was my neighbor standing at the fence that divided our yards, looking up at my open window. I was pretty freaked out, and I contemplated whether or not I should tell my parents. But it was dark, and I didn't know whether or not my neighbor was yelling at me, or at someone else that I couldn't see. I didn't know him very well. We had never spoken before. I didn't think there was any real reason to make a fuss over it. The next morning, I was home alone, getting ready for school. I see my neighbor putzing around in his yard, and we make awkward eye contact through my living room window. I didn't think anything of it. Close to 8:30 that morning, I hear my dog in our backyard barking, and it started to sound vicious. As I'm in the bathroom, I can hear the back door open. I casually thought, it's just Mom, but in the back of my mind I had a strange feeling it was my neighbor. My gut feeling was right. To this day, I am so thankful that I had listened to that small voice in the back of my head. We met up in the kitchen. There he was, standing 5 or 6 feet from me, with an 8-inch kitchen knife in his hand. I'll never forget the look on his face. He looked afraid, almost as if he didn't want to go through with what he was going to do. At the same time, he had this crazy look of lust in his eyes. He said, "Don't move." The only thought going through my head was, if you want to live, run. Now! You know when you have those nightmares where someone is chasing after you, but your body just feels really heavy? That's how my body felt at exactly that moment. I wanted to faint, and I'm so glad that I didn't. As I ran out of the house, I remember screaming, "No, no, no." I fell down the front stairs leading up to our porch, got up, and I must have knocked on 2 or 3 different houses before someone finally answered their door. My town's entire police force showed up. The guy ended up going back to his house. I guess he was an unsuccessful recovering alcoholic and had drank 2 liters of vodka the night before. He admitted to the police that he had been watching me through my bedroom window for months. When the police searched his home, they found photos of me that he had taken that explained in explicit detail what he wanted to do to me. Definitely the weirdest thing was the night after my dog was put down. He wasn't allowed on my parents' bed, but sure enough, when we left the room, he would jump up and mess with the covers. My dog was put down in the morning pretty suddenly, so my mom didn't get a chance to make her bed. When we got home after a bit of grieving, my mom started to do her daily chores, and this included making the bed. I was in the room when she made the bed, and it was perfect. We both left together and watched some TV with my dad, and we were the only 3 in the house. After whatever we were watching was over, I saw my mom walk down the hallway, and as soon as she saw her bed, she screamed. The covers were the messiest they've ever been. This happened for a couple days right after, and then just stopped. My family is completely convinced my dog's ghost hung around for a few days after he died. I was riding my bike home late one night, and coming my way is a big guy with sunglasses on. He gets me to stop and says, "Do you mind if I ask you some questions?" The fact that he said questions weirded me out, so I said, "No, sorry, I have to go," and I started riding away. At the next block there was a red light, so I stopped, I look back, and the guy is running towards me. He's about 20 feet away, and I freak out and just go. He got as close as about 5 feet from me before I pulled away. I'm sprinting on my bike, and like 3 or 4 blocks away, I'm far away, and I look back. He's still chasing me. I never pedaled so hard in my life all the way home,